Welcome. Thanks for joining me today on this gray day here in San Diego. Although normally we can't complain too much, but it is a perfect day for a Facebook Live. I'm Diane Ray, co founder of MindBodySpirit.fm podcast network. And we do these Facebook Lives to help you meet some new podcasters, to introduce you to some people on the network. And maybe you'll find a show that will become one of your new favorites. So today I'm really happy to introduce you to someone who is relatively new to the network. And we're really happy that she came on board, Melissa Boyd. And Melissa is a spiritual medium, and her podcast is called Secrets to Luminous Living. And Melissa helps people to connect to the spirit world. She uses different tools like meditation, intuition, and grounding techniques. And we're going to find out all about that today. So thanks for joining me, Melissa.
Thank you. Thank you. And it is very icy and snowy here in the state of Maine today.
Oh, that sounds cold. Well, I'm glad you could jump on here. We're cozy here on Facebook. So you are new to the network, and we're so happy that you're with us, part of our family here. And we want people that aren't familiar with you to learn about your podcast, Secrets to Luminous Living. So would you say it's for people that are new to metaphysics or people that might already be familiar with things like mediumship?
I think it's a little bit of both. I like to blend, both aspects of it. But to really make it so it's digestible to all people, I think it's really important to do that. So it's people who might be, new or just wanting to explore things. And a lot of my people that I interview have written books and research to people who might not know about the spirit world, but are starting to become more aware of it.
Well, there's so many people that are looking for a little help and support and guidance in these crazy days, and maybe looking to, to educate themselves. So this is perfect. So you've been aware of your own spirit guides for a long time, since you were really young, like 5 years old.
Yes.
And you like helping people to make connections to the spirit world. I mean, do you think there's some misconceptions about this, about spirit guides and people that might be afraid to learn more or to venture into that world?
Oh, absolutely. When I was 5 years old, I would wake up at night and I would write these notes and I would go to the grocery store and deliver notes to people. And even today, I still do that. And I think that we all are spiritual beings. We all have the ability. I always tell people, if your heart feels like, I really want to say this, it's because something is outside of yourself, you know. And if we look around the world right now, more people are turning to spirituality than they are to religion. So it is a growing movement, and I think people are ready to embrace it and to discover it for themselves.
Yes, that's so true. There's a lot of polls out there that say there's a huge number of people that consider themselves more, quote, spiritual than
Mhm.
religious, and there's a lot of people that are interested in the world that you're in, that you're so comfortable with. So what, on the podcast, I mean, you do a lot of interviews with people. You also do maybe some readings. What are some of your favorite tools that you like to use to introduce people to the spirit world?
I like to talk to people about their chakra system, but I do not teach the chakras through the body, through like looking at the body. I like to teach the chakras through the feet. And actually, let me grab this. I had this right here for tonight's show. So, whenever someone comes into my office or I see them, I always give them a chakra chart and I say, your feet are so intuitive. So if people are looking at this right now saying, what does that mean? So when you want to slow down, if you lean into your feet, that's your root chakra. And that's telling you to like listen and deeply connect. So I always remind people that, intuition is really a part of us. So using a ball under your feet, moving it back and forth is really strong. I also like to use color. So during a day, depending on what I'm doing, I will change my outfit a couple different times depending on the client, because it's like taking a shower, but with energy.
That's funny you mentioned color because I just realized we're both wearing like the
I
identical
I was
color.
just gonna say, I changed like 3 times too. So I like to call this mirror consciousness, and what Deepak Chopra calls it is synchrodestiny, when you get ready and you show up and someone's just like you.
Right. So what does gray mean? I don't know. Maybe you would
Actually,
automatically think
I
that's
do
not a
know.
good
So
thing.
gray is really good. Gray is neutrality. Gray is openness. It's really about, stepping forward. And we will talk about color and color psychology on the show as well. I have some guests that will be talking about that, as well as numbers and chakras and different systems.
It's great that you introduce all these different ideas and different modalities. I mean, do you try to explain it, in not, I don't want to say a dumb it down way, but like an easily accessible way for people that aren't familiar with some of these concepts? I think
Absolutely.
there's maybe some apprehension, maybe people are afraid to delve
I,
in.
I think they are. I mean, the funny thing is, I actually came out as a medium on a television show. I was a lobbyist and a commissioner for a long time, um, and what I would teach people who were legislators is I would say, you know, a lot of the hand poses that we do on a regular basis are actually mudras. And mudras are an ancient language that comes from yoga. So they're anywhere from 2 to 8,000 years of age. So everyone knows, like, if you're swearing you're in for something, you put your hand and then you have to swear on the Bible and do that. That's actually a mudra. That was a mudra that was developed 7,000 years ago. So I try to tell people, intuition is infused in everything that we do. We just don't realize it. And so when you start to unfold it in that way, you really can, as I like to say, grow your knowing, can really open up I really want to, I think it's good for people to be skeptical and to ask questions because that's how we learn and grow. But I think as a species, as you know, we are in this humongous opportune shift to awaken, um, to spirituality, to sensitivities, and not to mention the fact that there's a lot of anxiety and stress, and understanding your nervous system and your subtle body can really help people to to drop into themselves and drop into their cells to really understand what's happening with their body. And so one of the things I would say to everybody listening out there is, if your tongue is riding on the roof of your mouth on a regular basis, you're living in fight and flight and rest and digest. And so, and a lot of people experience that. We've had that since COVID. More dentists have seen cracked teeth than ever before. So it's things like just taking a moment and going, ah, so I like to infuse in the show simple tools. And then my guests that I interview also talk about tools they use with their clients and in their own work.
Just simple things that people can try during the day, just simple tips.
Absolutely. I think that's what it's about.
Yeah, making it easy. So
Mhm.
you've done some podcasting before, like this isn't your first
Yeah.
one, but the title of this one, "Secrets to Luminous Living." I mean, what is your definition of living, luminously, like letting your
Yeah.
inner light come through?
You know, eh, I think I chose luminous living, because I do believe that we're moving into, like living in the luminous species now. We're really, literally, there's a lot of research that shows we're moving from Homo sapien to Homo luminous. We're literally shifting species. And people look at me and they say, oh my gosh, what do you mean shifting species? And, I used to be in brain development and early childhood education. And the Cleveland Clinic that does, 10 to 15-year studies on early childhood and education, they're finding that children are being born telepathic. They're literally in the reports talking about this. The medical community is saying, kids are really intuitive. They're using different parts of their brain. They're very empathetic. So it's like we are evolving. And so for me, I feel like being luminous, and the idea of luminosity is that, we can all shine and support each other.
That's such an interesting theory. It's not the first time I've heard Homo luminous. An author that I used to work with during my Hay House days, Alberto Violdo, he would
Mhm.
talk about we're evolving. Have you heard of Alberto?
Oh,
His work?
absolutely.
Yeah. He would talk about we're evolving to
I
be,
have I have
oh, great.
his shamanistic pocket oracle cards right next to my desk all the time. He's
Oh,
phenomenal.
perfect. Hi, Alberto, if you happen to come across this. But I always love that visual of thinking that we're becoming Homo luminous. And I would think of the movie Cocoon, and how they
Yes.
had the aliens were kind of Homo luminous, I guess, if you wanted to describe it that way. So I think that's kind of fun to, imagine
Oh,
that that's what we would
absolutely.
be in the future.
Yeah, just luminous, this light-bodied creatures. I think when I look back at, and I guess I will just quickly say for the listeners that don't know me yet, because I was on the radio like 10 years ago, is that for a but most of my life I was up until 20 years ago, I was 365 pounds.
Wow.
I was told I had 6 months left to live. And one of the reasons I overate and I drank because I wanted to dull the voices of hearing the spirit world. And I hear that a lot with people that I read for. I do a lot of work with people who've lost children to suicide or murders. And I hear the addiction piece, and for me, my dad was really big into drugs and alcohol, and he actually lived in a homeless shelter for a short period of time. And, I was kind of miserable for, a while, just trying to get out of my own way. And then I found yoga. I came to my mat, I found yoga, and I was able to release 190 pounds. And then, my gifts just were able to be more fluid. And that's when I really stepped into doing this full time and not just kind of grocery store reading, I'll say.
Right. So yoga was kind of the doorway in that way to
Oh,
connect you with your body. I'm a
yes.
big believer of that. I'm a big yoga fan.
Yeah. And I mean, and if we look at yoga, yoga is an energy science. And
Mhm.
more and more people are doing yoga than ever before. It's becoming um
Mainstream.
mainstream. Yeah. And I went to a workshop once with Deepak Chopra, and one of the things he said, which was very interesting, is he said when the container that we live in starts to shift and people evolve their thinking, the possibilities will become endless.
Yes,
And, and then the other thing he said, which has always stuck with me, and I say to all my clients, which is your brain is a verb, not a noun.
that's true.
Right?
Interesting.
Yeah.
So another thing, I mean, you're an amazing medium, and I want to listen to some more of your past episodes on the podcast to hear you talking about mediumship. And you mentioned that you work with parents and people that are grieving, parents that may have lost a child
Mhm.
tragically. And I think mediumship can be so healing for
Oh,
people that are in grief. Um, so I wanted to see, maybe you could talk a little bit about that, like when you're working with people
yeah,
in that
absolutely.
space,
Mhm.
because it can be a tool to really help people heal.
Yeah, I mean, 1,000%. I'll just say that I will be doing mediumship galleries on my podcast. So I will have people. I'll have a live audiences that time. So people will have to look out for that, and that will be really fun because I will be doing a lot of on the air readings. But um, so interestingly, when I was 16, I was a Sunday school teacher, and my student Jimmy was murdered by a serial killer, and he was 12
Wow.
years old. And it really impacted my life in such an unbelievable way. And and Lewis Lent is still in prison for murdering at least 4 children, but they've connected him to about 20 different murders. And ever since then, Jimmy comes to me. He might come to me in a dream. I'll wake up in the middle of the night. I'll call a police station, somewhere in the world, and I'll just say this, this, this. And you know what they say to me? You're the fourth medium to call tonight to say the exact same information. We will follow up on it.
So they take it seriously
Oh
now.
yes, they do. They do. I work with the police on murder investigations to find missing people. They're definitely very, very open to it. Extremely open. But to
Wow.
go back to the parents, I live in Maine, and I do volunteer work by doing free sessions for the Center for Grieving Children. And right now, not just in Maine, but around the country, suicide amongst young people is rising. It's the first or second leading cause of death for children under the age of 17. And it's hangings, it's overdoses, and it's really a very intense um experience. I mean, not just that's a whole nother ball of wax is that, but working with parents who have lost children, it's I feel like it's like my calling really because I see it. I once sat with this woman and she came in because her husband died. And she was probably maybe like 67, 70 years old of age. And I started channeling for her. And the next thing you know, her son came through. Now, her son had died when he was 10. He was hit by a truck. And she had never grieved it. She blocked it out. She never wanted to drive in a truck. She never wanted to travel anywhere. She was just really stuck in her body. When her son came through and gave her such evidence, she was not expecting him to come through. It wasn't even a thought because it was like she was told, put that away. It's okay. She changed. It changed her, it changed everything about her. And so I think that as mediums, and I'll speak to the mediumship community as well, because I know there's a lot of mediums probably listening tonight or people who are doing spiritual work. I have a mentor who used to be the head of the Spiritualist Union in the UK, Val Williams. And she's been working with the spirit world since she was, well, for the past 40 years, really around the world. And one of the things that I've learned from having her as a mentor is that, as mediums, as people, I don't care how you're working with a grieving family, you need to take care of your energy first before you show up. You need to be present, open. You need to take time and to allow that energy to sift forward. But in my experience, children who have passed to the other side, they are just so happy and giddy. They have so much to share, and they bring such light to people, such light to people.
So it can be so healing. I just worry that, there's so much fraud. I mean, how would
There
you
is, there is a lot.
suggest?
I'm glad.
Yeah, and it's so heartbreaking to think that people would be taken advantage of. I mean, do the guests that you have on the podcast and then the information that you share, like, do you give people tips or information on how to not fall into, a trap or just disreputable person or someone who's trying to take
I
advantage of
do.
them? And
No, and I'm so glad because you know, it's a really big thing. Like where I was, so I tell people, I was trained by the spirit world, but I also have trained under a lot of mediums, but mostly from the UK because it's very serious over there. I don't want to say it's not serious in the US because it is, but there's a code of conduct when it comes to mediumship. So um what I tell people when they sit down with me is I say, it's good to be skeptical. Like skepticism is really important. And if someone's ever saying something to you that's that doesn't feel right, you know, push back. Don't be afraid to push back. So when I'm delivering the message, I am saying, do you understand this information? Also, you have to filter the information to make it be okay. But if anyone ever says to you, oh, come back to see me next week and you need me, please run. Honestly, I have actually had to confront people that were in my area at one point that were telling people, giving a reading, say for like, $100, and a person would go up and leave and they would say something really bad, like, to lift the curse on your family, you can buy this bath salt over here for $300. And the person buys the bath salt for $300. Like, never do that, please. And I sit with a lot of people, they come in, they say, I was so afraid to come. And I said, why? They said, well, I was afraid you were going to tell me when I was going to die. And I said, no, nobody knows when you're going to die. That's not okay. You cannot, that's not ethics. And
right.
so I feel like, it's important to for me, I've never advertised. I started with a cardboard sign and I work in 36 countries around the world. And I'm saying that because it's reputation, right? So and I learned a long time ago that even though someone is paying to come see me, I work for the spirit world. So I'm always connecting in and saying, allow me to be of divine loving service. What can I say today that's going to open up a high heart? And right now, there's a lot of tension out there in the world. So people need to watch their speech. They need to watch passive aggressive behavior. And it's not something, I think that we have this belief, we live in a world that sometimes has a black and white thinking where it's like, well, if you're passive aggressive or if you're an addict, you're bad. No, 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 no. You're just on a different vibration. So it's about how do you raise your vibration for yourself every day so that you can support your own heart and your path forward.
Right. No, that makes sense. I mean, you share so much great information and you're such an amazing resource for people. I mean, just quickly, like what are some of the other modalities that you like? Because I know you also work with sound healing and you talk a lot about meditation and
Well,
I love sound healing.
solfeggio frequencies are where it's at. In fact, when I was on another, can I say the radio show I was on or no? Well, it's gone now. But I was on Southern
Sure.
Blog Talk Radio.
You
I was on
can.
Southern Blog Talk Radio years ago, and I had David Hulse on, and David Hulse was incredible. He wrote a book called he is incredible. He wrote a book called A Fork in the Road, and he created Soma Energetics, and they sell tuning forks. And one of the things that he talked about in his book is that, the solfeggio frequencies were actually hidden in Gregorian chant. And they are the only, it's 396 hertz frequency, 417 hertz frequency, 528 hertz frequency, 639 hertz frequency, 741 hertz frequency, and 852 hertz frequency. And these tones, when you listen to them, are cymatic. They literally change the cellular structure of the body. Like literally, it's been scientifically proven. So he developed these tuning forks. So I use tuning forks all the time. I hit them, I put them on my forehead, I put them here on my thymus. And I find that it just helps me to vibrate in a higher frequency. And I tone my house to solfeggio frequencies as well.
Wow, that's amazing.
It's really, really cool. And I ask the walls, please listen to the frequency, allow it to seep in. And I tone my office to the frequencies. I always tell people, if you're a lawyer, if you do conflict resolution, I don't care what you do for a living, tone your office. Turn on 528 hertz frequency. Now, again, just like anybody, there's good and there's not reputable tones, because tones can actually make you sick, believe it or not, if you're not using the right ones. I totally believe in everything by Meditative Mind. I think they're a great resource for all your solfeggio needs. And I'm also big on breath work.
Yes.
The breath has eyes to see.
That can be so healing. Well, we're as humans, I think we're big tuning forks in a way. So what you're saying just makes sense. Well, I'm excited that you're going to be sharing all this information with our podcast listeners. And do you have one like little teaser you can give us of maybe a guest coming up soon that people can look forward to?
Oh, yes. Let me
Or a topic or
okay, a topic. Yes. Well, I'm actually really excited because I'm going to be a guest on my own podcast, and I'm going to be talking all things telepathy.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
going to be teaching telepathy and tools to master your telepathy. And I've been teaching telepathy pretty much, for about 20 years, and different ways that you can learn telepathy and practice with your friends. So to get better at it. And we're all telepathic anyhow.
I think so too.
Yeah.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah.
Well, I'm so glad you could spend some time with me today and talking about your podcast. And we're excited to have you on the
So
mindbodyspirit.fm network. And people have to check you out. So definitely go to Melissa's show and make sure you're following it on all the podcast outlets,
Oh,
Secrets to Luminous Living.
And let me just add quickly to today, which launched today, which is a dear woman I adore with my whole heart, talking about helping kids, is Dr. Katie Eastman.
Oh, I'm familiar with Katie
And she's
Eastman.
the author of Uplifting. And Katie and I have known her for about 25 years now, and talk about working with dying children. She and I worked together in Maine, and this book is phenomenal. I actually was honored to be one of the readers for her book when it came out, and she's just changing the world, and her inspiring, uplifting voice. So definitely Dr. Katie Eastman, adore her to the moon.
Yeah, give that a listen. No, she's amazing. I'm familiar with her work. That's so great. Well, thank you so much, Melissa. And remember, everybody, check out Melissa's show, Secrets to Luminous Living. Head over to mindbodyspirit.fm online. Check out our YouTube channel and also some of the other amazing podcasters that we have on the network. And thanks so much for listening today.